The handcuffs bit into my wrists like the teeth of a ghost I couldn't shake. Rain hammered the patrol car's roof as Officer Nova Reyes dragged me through the station doors, her grip firm but not cruel, her green eyes flickering with something I couldn't place. Pity, maybe, or the shadow of recognition. "You're safe now, Genesis," she whispered, unlocking the cuffs in the dim interrogation room, her voice cracking like thunder over the Sierra Nevada. "But what you've done. It ends tonight or it takes us both down." I slumped into the metal chair, the fluorescent lights buzzing like angry hornets overhead, casting harsh shadows on the peeling walls of the Seville police station. My heart pounded not from fear, but from the exhaustion of running, of loving someone who could unravel everything I'd built. Nova slid a styrofoam cup of coffee across the scarred table, black and steaming, the way I'd always taken it during those stolen afternoons in Granada. She was 32, all sharp angles and quiet strength, her auburn hair cropped short against the nape of her neck, a habit from her days in the Guardia Civil Academy. That scar on her jaw? A memento from a bar fight in Malaga, she told me once, laughing it off as the price of bad decisions and worse tequila. But tonight, under the weight of my confession, her face was a map of unspoken regrets. "Tell me again," she said, sinking into the chair opposite me, her uniform jacket slung over the backrest like a discarded skin. Her voice was low, laced with that American twang she'd picked up from her Irish-American mother, phrases like "cut the crap" slipping in when she was mad, which was often these days. Nova had moved to Spain from Chicago as a kid, chasing her father's ghost after he vanished in some shady import deal. She'd clawed her way up the ranks here in Andalusia, where the sun baked secrets into the earth, and the nights whispered them back. From the beginning, General no holding back. I stared into the coffee, the steam curling up like the smoke from the bonfires we'd lit on the beaches of Cadiz last summer. God, that felt like a lifetime ago. Genesis Alvarez, 28, daughter of a flamenco dancer and a mechanic who fixed tourist rentals in Ronda. I'd grown up dodging the shadows of my mother's failed loves, her guitar strings humming lullabies of heartbreak in our cramped apartment overlooking the Guadalquivir. Art was my escape. Sketches of olive groves at dawn, portraits of strangers in the Alhambra's gardens, capturing the fleeting beauty before it turned to ash. But love? That was the real art, the one that demanded you bleed on the canvas. It started with Elena. Not Nova, Elena Vargas, the golden girl of Seville's art scene. 25 with porcelain skin, raven hair that fell like a waterfall, and eyes that promised eternity in a single glance. We met at a gallery opening in the Barrio Santa Cruz, where the air smelled of jasmine and fresh churros. She was unveiling her latest series, abstract explosions of color, inspired by Lorca's poems, all passion and no restraint. I was there as a nobody, a barista by day who slung espresso at a cafe near the cathedral, dreaming of my own show someday. But when our eyes locked across the room, amid the clink of wine glasses and murmurs of critique, something ignited. "You're the one who draws the ghosts," she said later, cornering me by the tapas table, her red dress hugging curves that made my pulse stutter. It was a line from one of my sketches I'd posted online. Anonymous, raw, people as spectral figures wandering Seville's labyrinthine alleys. I laughed it off, but she pressed a card into my hand, her studio address scrawled in silver ink. "Come see mine tomorrow. Maybe you'll draw mine." I did. And oh, how I did. Elena's world was a whirlwind of velvet ropes and velvet nights, private viewings in Triana's Potter's Quarter, where she'd drape herself over antique kills like a modern-day Venus, midnight drives to the Sierra Morena, her laughter echoing as we chased fireflies under star-pricked skies. She was fire, unapologetic and consuming, and I was the moth drawn inexorably closer. Our first kiss happened in her studio, paint-smeared canvases leaning like drunken soldiers against the walls. She tasted of Merlot and mischief, her hands threading through my dark waves, pulling me under. But Elena had layers, shadows that flickered just out of reach. Whispers followed her. Affairs that ended in tears, patrons who funded her work a little too generously, jealous rivals who'd vanish from the scene overnight. "It's the price of brilliance," she'd say, tracing the curve of my hip with a brush dipped in cerulean, leaving temporary tattoos that faded like promises. I believed her. Love makes fools of us all, doesn't it? In those early months we were inseparable, wandering the Alcazar's orange tree groves at dusk, her head on my shoulder as we sketched the interplay of light and leaf, sharing paella on her rooftop terrace. The city sprawled below like a lover's discarded clothes. Yet cracks formed subtle at first. She'd cancel dinners with flimsy excuses. A last-minute inspiration that kept her out till dawn. I'd find lipstick on her collars that wasn't mine. Faint sense of unfamiliar perfumes clinging to her scarves. Jealousy doesn't suit you, mi alma, she'd tease, but her eyes would dart away like a fencer's feint. I pushed it down, buried it under sketches of us. Her profile against the sunset over the Plaza de España. Fierce and untouchable. Then came the night that shattered the illusion. It was late October, the air crisp with the promise of rain, and I'd surprised her at the studio with a bottle of Rioja and my latest piece. A portrait of her, all fire and fragility. The door was ajar, murmurs spilling out like smoke. I froze in the threshold, the painting clutched like a shield. There she was, Elena, tangled in the arms of Sofia Ruiz. A curator twice her age with silver-streaked hair and a reputation for collecting more than just art. Their laughter was intimate, the kind that slices deeper than any knife. Sofia's hand on Elena's waist, Elena's lips brushing her ear. I dropped the bottle. Glass shattered, wine pooling like blood on the terracotta floor. They turned, Elena's face paling to ash. Jen, it's not. She started, but I was already backing away, the world tilting on its axis. Betrayal isn't a thunderclap. It's a slow unraveling. Threads pulling loose until you're bare and exposed. I ran into the night, the rain starting then, soaking me to the bone as I stumbled through the narrow calles of the Macarena district. My phone buzzed, texts, calls, but I silenced it, letting the storm drown the noise. That's when Nova entered the frame, not as a savior, but as fate's cruel joke. I ended up at a dive bar in the Triana docks, the kind where fishermen nurse anisette in old grudges. I drank too much, sketched feverishly on napkins. Elena as a crumbling mosaic, Sofia as the hammer. A fight broke out over a spilled drink, fists flying, and in the chaos, I swung at a shadow that turned out to be a local thug with a grudge against outsider artists. He clocked me hard and the world went black. I woke to sirens, handcuffs, and Nova's face hovering above me in the ambulance. Easy, Carino, she'd murmured, her accent wrapping around the endearment like a bandage. You've got a mean right hook for an artist. Turns out she'd been off duty, nursing a beer at the bar, coincidence she'd claim later, but I wondered if the universe had a hand in it. She was the responding officer, the one who pieced together my ID from the wallet-spilling sketches onto the floor. By the time we reached the station, the adrenaline had crashed, leaving me hollow. Now here we were 3 weeks later, the rain still falling outside like it hadn't stopped. I'd confessed it all, not just the bar brawl but the deeper crime. I'd slashed Elena's prized canvas that night, the one she'd been prepping for her big Madrid show. A single stroke of my box cutter, right through the heart of her abstract storm. It wasn't premeditated. It was rage, pure and blinding. But the evidence was damning. Paint under my nails, the tool in my bag when they searched me. Vandalism. Assault charges pending if Sofia pressed them. Nova leaned forward, her elbows on the table, fingers steepled like a confessor. Why, Jen? You could have walked away. Reported it. Anything but this. Her eyes searched mine, green as the olive groves in spring, and I saw the flicker again, that pull, the one I'd felt in the ambulance, when her hand had steadied my shoulder. We'd talked then, haltingly, over hospital coffee. She shared snippets of her life. The mother who sent care packages of Chicago deep dish from across the ocean. The father whose disappearance left her chasing justice in every uniform she wore. I told her about Elena. The sketches that captured love's fragility. By discharge, we'd exchanged numbers. 4 follow-ups, she'd said, but we both knew better. The follow-ups turned to coffees, then walks along the river at twilight. Nova was steady where Elena was storm, her laugh a quiet rumble, her touch a grounding force. We'd picnic in the Maria Luisa Park, her feeding me manchego cheese from callous fingers, me sketching her profile against the tiled fountains. Your trouble, she'd say, but her smile betrayed her. And when she kissed me first, under a canopy of jacaranda blooms in May, it was gentle like rain on parched earth. No fire, but a warmth that seeped into bones I'd thought frozen. But love in Seville is never simple. It's tangled with history's ghosts. Elena resurfaced, of course. A chance encounter at the feria. Her in a flamenco dress that hugged her like regret. me and Nova's borrowed jacket smelling of leather and her. "We need to talk," Elena said, her voice honey over thorns. I refused, but she persisted. Letters slipped under my door, paintings left at the cafe, each one a plea wrapped in apology. "It was a mistake, General Sophia means nothing. You're my muse." Nova saw the toll. "Cut her off," she'd urged during our evenings on her tiny balcony overlooking the Guadalquivir, the city lights dancing on the water like fireflies. We'd share gazpacho and stories, her of stakeouts in the heat, me of canvases that wouldn't cooperate. But doubt crept in, a serpent in our garden. Nova's job demanded secrecy. Mine vulnerability. And Elena? She was the serpent's whisper, promising the chaos I'd once craved. The night of the confession, it all boiled over. I'd gone to Elena's studio one last time, not to forgive, but to retrieve a sketchbook she'd borrowed. She was there, alone, the slashed canvas restored by some miracle of conservators. "See? We can fix this," she said, pulling me into an embrace that lingered too long. I pulled away, but the damage was done. Nova burst in moments later, her off-duty pistol drawn, eyes blazing with betrayal. She'd followed me, suspecting a trap. "What the hell, Genesis?" she'd shouted, the words echoing like a gunshot. In the station now, I recounted it all, the words tumbling out like confessions in a cathedral. Nova listened, her face a mask cracking at the edges. When I finished, silence stretched, thick as fog off the Atlantic. Then she said it, the words that etched into my soul. "I thought you were different. But maybe we're all just echoes of our mistakes, repeating them until someone listens." She stood, signaling the end. Charges would be filed, but she'd fight for leniency, community service, restitution. As the rain drummed on, I realized this was our climax. Not the slash of a blade, but the severing of trust. Yet in her eyes, amid the pain, flickered something human. Forgiveness, perhaps, or the start of it. Seville's nights hold many secrets. Ours was just beginning to unfold. The weeks that followed were a blur of bureaucracy and broken routines. Court dates loomed like storm clouds over the Sierra Nevada, and I navigated them in a haze, my sketchbook my only anchor. Elena vanished from the scene. Rumors swirled of a hasty retreat to Barcelona, chasing new patrons and fresher scandals. Sophia, ever the pragmatist, dropped the assault claim in exchange for a public apology at the gallery, one I'd choke out through gritted teeth under Nova's watchful eye from the back row. For closure, Nova had advised, her voice neutral over the phone, our conversations now clipped, professional. No more balcony sunsets, no shared gazpacho under the stars. Just echoes. I threw myself into restitution. Community art classes for at-risk youth in the Poligono Sur. Seville's rougher edges where graffiti bloomed like defiant flowers on concrete walls. The kids were raw talent wrapped in armor. 14-year-old Jamal with his spray can visions of Andalusian horses thundering through urban sprawl. Maria, 16, whose charcoal portraits captured the quiet dignity of her immigrant mother's hands, calloused from laundering tourists' linens. Teaching them felt like redemption. Each stroke of pencil a stitch mending the tear-eyed maid in Elena's world. Art isn't about perfection, I'd tell them, echoing words Elena once whispered to me. It's about the mess, the beauty in the fracture. Nova checked in sporadically, her visits to the center framed as oversight for the court's terms. She'd linger in the doorway, arms crossed over her chest, that leather jacket her constant now, even in the sweltering June heat. At 32, she carried the weight of the badge like an old wound, her green eyes scanning rooms for threats that weren't there. We'd talk shop, her latest bust of smugglers running olive oil laced with contraband through the ports. My breakthrough with a mural project on the center's facade, vibrant tiles depicting unity amid division. But the air between us crackled with unsaid things, a tension that hummed like the cicadas in Maria Luisa Park. One evening, after the kids had cleared out, she stayed. The sun dipped low, painting the room in hues of saffron and rose, and she traced a finger over the half-finished mural. A woman emerging from shadows, arms outstretched to a dawn sky. "This you?" she asked, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "Us, maybe?" I replied, wiping charcoal from my hands on my jeans. 28 felt ancient those days, my dark waves streaked with premature silver from stress, my olive skin etched with lines of worry. I caught her gaze lingering, not on the art but on me, the curve of my neck, the way my blouse clung in the humidity. Heat flushed my cheeks unbidden. She stepped closer, the scent of her leather faint citrus cologne. Stirring memories I tried to bury. I've missed this, she admitted, her American lilt wrapping the words in vulnerability. Missed you. But trust. It's fragile, general, like one of your sketches in the rain. I nodded, throat tight. I know. Elena, she was my storm. You're the calm after. The words hung, heavy with truth. Elena had been passion's blaze, consuming until it charred. Nova was the river, deep and steady, carving canyons over time. We kissed then, tentative at first, her lips brushing mine like a question. When I leaned in, it deepened. A slow burn, her hands framing my face, thumbs tracing the apples of my cheeks. No urgency, just reconnection. The world narrowing to the press of her body against mine. The faint scar on her jaw rough under my palm. We broke apart breathless, foreheads touching, the mural's shadows lengthening around us. That night marked a fragile thaw. Dates resumed, cautious as new buds after frost. Strolls through the real Alcazar, where we'd lose ourselves in the patios of maidens, her hand in mine as we decoded the Moorish tile's secrets. Quiet dinners at Tabernas in the Arenal, sharing Jamana Barrico and stories of what-ifs. Nova opened up more. Her father's disappearance wasn't just abandonment. He'd been tangled in a web of art forgeries, vanishing to protect the family, leaving her with a distrust of beauty's underbelly. That's why I patrol these streets, she'd say, fork paused midair. To catch the fakes before they hurt someone. I shared my own ghosts. Mother's flamenco, a dance of joy and sorrow, her lovers coming and going like seasons, teaching me love was performance, not permanence. Elena fit that script, I confessed one night, rain pattering on the cafe awning as we sheltered with cortados. But you make me want the encore. Summer swelled, humid and heady, and our love deepened roots. We escaped to the Costa de la Luz for a weekend, renting a cottage in Zahara de los Aitons, where the Atlantic crashed white against golden sands. Mornings we'd wake to the cry of gulls, her arms around me as sunlight filtered through linen curtains. Afternoons, hikes along cliff paths, her laughter echoing as we picnicked on fresh sardines grilled over driftwood fires. Evenings, tangled in sheets, whispers tracing skin. Not frenzy but intimacy, her fingers mapping the constellations of my freckles, my lips learning the rhythm of her breath. Yet conflict simmered beneath the idol. Nova's job pulled her into longer shifts, stakeouts that left her hollow-eyed and distant. And Elena, damn her, refused to stay buried. A package arrived at the art center. A restored sketch I'd left behind, framed in ornate gilt with a note. Our story isn't over. Come to the gallery opening in Madrid. Forgive me. My hands trembled as I read it, the kids' chatter fading to white noise. I didn't tell Nova at first. Hid it in my drawer like a splinter I couldn't extract. But guilt festered, manifesting in sketches of fractured figures, two women reaching across a chasm, hands inches from touch. Nova noticed, of course. What's eating you? She'd ask, her cop's intuition sharp as ever. Old echoes. I'd deflect, but the lie tasted bitter. The opening loomed, a siren call from the capital, promising closure or catastrophe. Against my better judgment, I booked the train alone. Just to end it properly, I told myself, packing light. Jeans, a simple blouse, my sketchbook as armor. Madrid was a fever dream of marble and modernity. The gallery in Salamanca, a sleek fortress of glass and steel. Elena was resplendent in emerald silk, holding court amid critics and collectors, her smile a blade sheathed in charm. When she saw me, her eyes lit like struck matches. You came, she breathed, pulling me into an alcove away from the throng. To say goodbye, I insisted, but her touch on my arm, familiar, electric, stirred embers I'd thought cold. She poured wine, spun tales of redemption. Sophia was a folly, a ladder rung. Her new series was inspired by me, by us. See. She gestured to a canvas. Swirling blues and golds, a figure emerging from turmoil whole. It was us, or the version she'd rewritten. Hours blurred, wine flowing, laughter loosening knots. When she kissed me, it was Elena's old magic. Fire and forgetfulness. I pulled back, but too late. The damage echoed the studio night. Guilt crashed over me like a wave, and I fled to the train, the city lights streaking past like accusations. Back in Seville, Nova waited on my doorstep, rain-slicked and stone-faced. Where were you? she demanded, her voice a whip crack. I crumbled, the truth spilling. The trip, the kiss, the weakness. Her face shuddered, green eyes turning to jade hard. I trusted you, she whispered, stepping back as if burned. After everything. The betrayal cut deepest because it mirrored hers, no mine from the start. She left without another word. The door clicking shut like a gavel. Days turned to weeks of radio silence. I haunted the art center, the kids' progress my lifeline, but sketches turned dark. Shadows swallowing light, hands clenched in futile grasp. Nova threw herself into work, whispers reaching me through mutual friends. A raid gone sideways in the docks, her pulling double shifts to outrun the pain. The climax brewed in autumn's amber light. Elena called, triumphant. Her show a smash, invitations pouring in. But I heard the undercurrent, desperation, the high fading to hollow. Come back, she pleaded. We were electric. No, I said, firm for the first time. We were a spark. Nova. She's the fire that lasts. Emboldened, I sought Nova out at the station, the rain relentless as my resolve. She was in the bullpen, paperwork mountains high, her scar stark under the fluorescence. We need to talk, I said, voice steady. Not now, Jen, but her eyes betrayed her, hurt yes but longing too. I persisted, cornering her in the break room over vending machine coffee. I messed up. Again. But running from this, that's the real crime. Tears welled, hot and unbidden. You're not my echo, Nova. You're my horizon. She softened just a fraction, her hand brushing mine. Horizons move me more. What if I can't keep up? Then we walk together, I whispered, pulling her close. The kiss was salt and storm, reconciliation forged in rain. Outside thunder rolled, but for the first time it felt like promise. Winter gripped Seville with unusual ferocity that year. The Guadalquivir swelling under gray skies. Mist cloaking the Giralda's golden vein like a shroud. Our reconciliation was tentative, a bridge rebuilt plank by plank. Nova and I navigated it carefully. Therapy sessions in a sun-dappled office near the university, where a soft-spoken psychologist named Carla unpacked our baggage. My fear of abandonment rooted in Mother's revolving door of lovers, Nova's hypervigilance born of her father's vanishing act. Trust is a choice, Carla would say, her glasses glinting like beacons. Daily. Deliberate. We chose it. Mornings became ritual. Me brewing café con leche in her cramped kitchen, the aroma mingling with the tang of her citrus soap as she emerged from the shower, towel turbaned and grinning. We'd linger over the breakfast bar, her feet hooked around my stool, sharing sections of El País, her scanning crime logs, me devouring the arts page. Afternoons pulled us apart. Her to patrols winding through the labyrinth of the Triana market, dodging pickpockets and potholes. Me to the center where the mural now bloomed full. A tapestry of hands interlinked, symbolizing the threads that bind despite fraying. Evenings wove us back. Cooking classes at a local mercado, fumbling with paella pans until saffron rice stuck like glue, dissolving into laughter that echoed off terracotta walls. Or quiet nights on her balcony, bundled in wool blankets against the chill, her head on my shoulder as we watched barges glide under Triana Bridge, their lights fracturing on the water. This is home, she'd murmur, her American twang softening the Spanish-like melody. And it was fragile but real. But Seville's undercurrents run deep, and conflict resurfaced in the form of Javier Ruiz, Sophia's brother, a mid-level investigator with the National Police, transferred to our precinct on a corruption probe. He was Elena's loose end, it turned out. Sophia had confessed the affair to him in a moment of weakness, and he'd nursed the grudge like fine sherry, aging it to venom. Nova clashed with him immediately. Jurisdictional spats over a smuggling ring tied to art thefts, his barbs laced with personal digs. Careful, Reyes, he'd sneer in the bullpen, his mustache twitching like a ferret's whiskers. Fraternizing with vandals clouds judgment. She brushed it off at first, but I saw the toll nights she tossed beside me, murmuring case notes in her sleep. Mornings her green eyes shadowed like storm clouds over the Atlantic. He's fishing, she'd say, but doubt crept in, a whisper questioning if my past tainted her present. Elena, sensing blood in the water, reached out again, this time through Javier. Anonymous tips linking her old patrons to the forgeries Nova's father had chased. It was a ploy I knew draw me back into the web or fracture Nova's focus. The fuse lit on a blustery February night. Nova was lead on a raid. Intel pointed to a warehouse in the Nervian industrial zone, crates of antiquities smuggled from Morocco, funneled through fake galleries. Javier tagged along, for oversight, his presence a thorn. I waited at home, sketchbook open to a half-formed portrait of Nova, her jaw set, eyes fierce, pacing the floorboards until they groaned. The call came at midnight, her voice strained but steady. "It's bad, General Ambush." Javier's hit. My world tilted. I grabbed keys, racing through rain-lashed streets to the hospital in Macarena. Wipers slapping like accusations. The air was chaos. Medics barking orders, the metallic tang of blood undercut by antiseptic sting. Nova sat in the hall, jacket torn, a gash above her brow stitched hastily, her hands trembling as she clutched a styrofoam cup. What happened? I knelt before her, thumbs brushing her knuckles cold as marble. "Set up," she whispered, eyes distant. Javier took the shot meant for me, vest caught most but shrapnel. "He's in surgery." Guilt etched her features, deep as the Guadalquivir's bends. But then her gaze sharpened, pinning me. "And Elena?" "She tipped them." Javier confirmed, her anonymous intel was bait, to discredit the raid, pull strings with her patrons. Betrayal's second wave crashed, colder than the first. Elena, my storm, weaponizing our history to claw back control. I flashed to Madrid, that stolen kiss. How it must have fueled her delusion, twisting forgiveness into ammunition. "I'm sorry," I choked, but Nova shook her head. "Not you. This city's rot. It seeps in." She pulled me close, her breath ragged against my hair. Javier pulled through, a collapsed lung and fractured ribs. But the raid's fallout rippled. Internal affairs probe, whispers of Nova's compromised judgment due to our relationship. Javier, recovering in a private room Sofia footed, spun a narrative, implying I'd leaked details through Elena. A chain of whispers from my art world ties. The accusation landed like a gut punch at the inquiry hearing. A sterile room in the prefecture overlooking the Plaza de Armas. Nova faced the panel stone-faced, her testimony clipped. Timelines, evidence logs, her unyielding belief in the op's integrity. I sat in the gallery, heart hammering, surrounded by brass and bureaucrats, their stares like spotlights. When Javier testified, limping on a cane, his words dripped poison. Officer Reyes's personal entanglements blinded her. The artist's lover former fed intel to saboteurs. Coincidence? Murmurs swelled. Nova's eyes met mine across the room. A flicker of steel amid the storm. She didn't defend me outright. Protocol bound her tongue. But in recess in the shadowed corridor she gripped my arms. "I know the truth, General, but if they dig, it'll bury us both." Panic clawed my throat. "Then let me fix it."
Confronta Elena.
"In this." She hesitated, then nodded. "Together. No more solos." We tracked Elena to a finca outside Córdoba, a crumbling estate in the countryside where she'd retreated to create, funded by shadowy benefactors. The drive was tense, the air slicing through olive hills under a pallid moon. Radio static the only sound breaking our silence. Nova's pistol weighed heavy in her glove box. My sketchbook, lighter but no less weaponized, held portraits that pierced deeper than bullets. The finca loomed, lanterns flickering in arched windows like wary eyes. Elena answered the door in a silk robe, hair tousled, surprise melting to serpentine smile. "Genesis. And the knight in uniform. To what do I owe?" "Truth," Nova said, stepping forward, her presence filling the threshold like authority incarnate. "Your tips nearly killed my partner." "Confessions, Elena. Now." She laughed, a chime of broken glass, ushering us into a salon strewn with half-finished canvases. Vortices of rage and regret. Wine was poured unasked, crimson as accusation. "It was business," she admitted finally, perching on a divan like a deposed queen. "Sofia's brother Javier blackmailed me. Knew about the forgeries, the patrons. I fed him scraps to buy silence. The raid? Collateral. I never meant." "Lies," I interrupted, voice cracking. "You used me. Our history. For what? Power. Another ladder." Her eyes softened, theatrical tears welling. "Love, General, twisted, maybe, but real. You were my spark. She's safe. But safe is stagnation." Nova's hand found mine, grounding. "Love isn't a weapon. It's choice." And yours poisoned everything. The confrontation peaked in raw exchange. Elena's defenses crumbling under our united front, admissions spilling. Links to the smuggling ring, names of corrupt gallery owners, even a trail back to Nova's father's old case. By dawn, as roosters crowed over the hills, Elena was in cuffs, Nova radioing backup, her voice steady as the rising sun. But victory tasted bittersweet. Driving back, the radio crackling with commendations, Nova's grip on the wheel whitened. "What now?" she asked, eyes on the road. "Inquiries tomorrow. If they don't buy it." "They will," I said, but fear not. The climax wasn't the raid or the finca. It was this, the precipice where love meets consequence, where one wrong word could topple us. At the hearings, close evidence mounted. Elena's recorded confession, Javier's recantation under pressure from Nova was cleared, commended even, but the scars lingered, doubt in sidelong glances from colleagues, a hesitation in her step. That night, under a canopy of stars on the banks of the Guadalquivir, we walked barefoot in the mud, the river murmuring absolution. "We survived," she said, pulling me close, her scar a reminder of battles won. "Barely," I replied, but in her arms it felt like enough. Spring unfurled in Seville like a long-held breath released. Azahar blossoms perfuming the air, petals carpeting the calles in white confetti. Elena's trial was swift, a quiet affair in Cordoba's courthouse, her empire of illusions dismantled under fluorescent scrutiny. She pleaded out. Reduced charges for cooperating community service in a women's shelter, far from canvases and spotlights. Last I heard, she was teaching basic watercolors to survivors, her fire tempered to embers. Javier transferred out, tail between legs, Sophia's influence waning like a tide. For Nova and me, normalcy was a hard-won art. The inquiry's shadow lifted, but trust's reconstruction demanded patience. Date nights laced with check-ins. "How's your heart today?" becoming our shorthand for the deeper wounds. We leaned into the humanistic threads. Volunteering at the art center together, Nova's steady hands guiding brushes for kids wary of authority, my sketches evolving to include her. Portraits of quiet heroism, her green eyes capturing the city's resilient soul. One balmy May evening, as the Feria's lights twinkled across the river, Nova proposed. Not with rings or fanfare but authenticity. We'd wandered to the Plaza de Toros, empty now save for ghosts of old corridas, the sand raked smooth under moonlight. She knelt, not in supplication but equality, pulling 2 silver bands from her pocket, simple, etched with olive leaves, symbols of Andalusia's enduring roots. "Genesis Alvarez," she said, her voice steady, American warmth cutting the night's chill. "You've been my storm, my calm, my horizon. Marry me not to fix us but to build. Every day choose me." Tears blurred the stars, my heart swelling like the Guadalquivir in flood. "Yes," I whispered, slipping the band on her finger, hers on mine. "Every day. Every sketch, every shift." The wedding was intimate, a civil ceremony in the Alcazar's gardens, orange trees heavy with fruit, witnesses our chosen family. Carla the therapist beaming from the front row, Jamal and Maria, now 16 and blooming artists, holding bouquets of wild jasmine. Nova's mother flown in from Chicago, her deep dish pies a hit at the reception. Vows exchanged in a blend of Spanish and English, mine a poem sketched on vellum. "In your eyes I find my north, in your hands my home." Honeymoon in the Pyrenees, a rented cabin amid pine-scented peaks, where we hiked trails etched by ancient shepherds, her laughter echoing off granite faces. Nights by the fire we'd share dreams, her eyeing a desk job, training recruits to spot the human in the criminal. Me plotting a joint exhibit, echoes of us, blending her photographs of Seville's underbelly with my portraits of its heart. Back home, life wove onward, textured and true. The art center thrived, murals multiplying to neighborhood walls, a testament to art's power to heal divides. Nova mentored a young officer, a queer woman fresh from the academy, sharing stories of breaking glass ceilings in a macho force. And Elena? A letter arrived months later, postmarked Barcelona. A sketch, amateur but earnest, of 2 figures walking hand in hand into light. "Forgive yourself," it read. "That's the real masterpiece." I showed it to Nova over coffee on the balcony. The city awakening below. Bakers firing ovens, vendors calling in the market. She traced the lines, nodding. "Human, huh? Even storms learn to settle." We did too. Love, we'd learned, isn't absence of conflict, betrayals, doubts, the world's sharp edges, but presence through it. Choosing the horizon, even when it shifts. In Seville's eternal dance of light and shadow we found our rhythm. Not flawless but fiercely ours. Years later at our 10th anniversary picnic in Maria Luisa Park, Jamal, now a graffiti artist with gallery shows, spray-painted a quick tribute on easel paper. Two women under jacaranda blooms, hands linked eternal. Maria played flamenco on guitar, her mother's hands reborn in chords of joy. Nova pulled me close, her scar softened by time. Green eyes still my compass. Echoes, she murmured. But ours are the ones that last. And in that moment, amid petals falling like blessings, I knew we'd painted a life worth every stroke, every scar, every dawn.